Time now for today's press review with Florence Villeminot. Today's French papers are still focusing on the release on of these 4 French hostages.
That's right. Now, after the scandal of whether or not a ransom was paid, a lot of the papers are actually focusing on the 4 men as they try to return to real life after 3 years in captivity. Le Parisien, for instance, takes a look at what we know about their time in captivity. So far, the men have been very discreet. For instance, they didn't really say anything when they were greeted by the president at the airport, but details are starting to emerge little by little. For instance, the fact that they were often kept in pairs, they were moved around a lot. 2 of them, Thierry Dole and Marc Laribe, even tried to escape. In this article in Le Parisien describes how they escaped in their socks to avoid any kind of footprints, but they were later caught by their captors and punished. Some questions remain, though, according to this article. For instance, what their relationship was like with their captors, whether, for instance, they were forced to convert to Islam. One official quoted in the article says, when you're held for 3 years like that sometimes the best thing to do is just to try to fit in.
Okay, the press is also talking about the controversial comments made by the far-right leader, Marine Le Pen.
That's right. Just to remind you what she said that she felt uneasy on seeing the footage of the 4 men, calling their behavior and their clothing surprising, especially the fact that they had beards and were wearing these scarves, etc. She seemed to suggest that maybe they'd been turned, were suffering from Stockholm syndrome, somewhat of a really bad homeland scenario here in France. So that's an article in Libération that's focusing on her comments. Le Monde is also wondering just why maybe she said this. Perhaps she was trying to appeal to the far right of her party. Also perhaps proving that she's in touch with pop culture with this reference to homeland. In any event, she's drawn a wave of criticism, people saying not only are her comments ridiculous, they're also Islamophobic, and she herself has tried to backpedal a little bit, saying that her choice of words was clumsy, but the damage, according to a lot of the media, has already been done.
Okay, so let's take a look. I think you've got a cartoon from the Huffington Post.
Sorry, I almost forgot about that. Coming back to the issue about the ransom, let's take a look at this cartoon in the Huffington Post, where you see the captors there getting their ransom. There'd been talk about a ransom of 20 million euros, but one of the captors there is saying, well, wait, they've taxed us 75%.
Well, talking about this, President Hollande's row with French football teams.
That's right, because the football clubs, they said that they were going to go on strike over this 75% super tax. So that's on the front page of Le Figaro today that talks about Hollande's fight with football clubs. Last month, so they said they were going to go on strike. Hollande met with club representatives yesterday and said he was putting his foot down. No, they were going to have to pay this 75% tax. Le Figaro, in its editorial, takes a closer look and says Hollande really didn't have much of a choice here because he's backpedaled so much on his tax policy. He had to push his foot down. He had to show he wasn't a pushover. So perhaps he's patting himself on the back for finally saying no. But in the end, according to Le Figaro, this 75% tax is absurd and actually does a lot of damage to the French economy, because, according to this article, it puts foreign investors off and it drives French companies out of France.
And football clubs have vowed to continue their strike at the end of the month.
Absolutely, and a lot of papers are wondering why are they going to continue the strike since Hollande has made it very clear that he's not going to give them this tax break. This is an article in, there's an article in Le Parisien that talks about it today, because according to opinion polls, a lot of French people actually say that, clubs should pay this tax. Why would they get a tax break here? And according to an article in Le Parisien, all this just makes French football look a little bit bad. Critics already see French football clubs as a bunch of whiny, spoiled brats, so maybe this won't help their image.
And today is All Saints' Day, and it's a day when people remember the dead, of course, and a day for papers to reflect on death in this modern age.
That's right. This is an interesting article in the Parisien again that says that in this modern internet age, death has changed quite a bit. They talk about death 2.0. There's been a revolution, not so much in the fact that people mourn, but in the way that they mourn. And especially, it's not a complete break in tradition, but it's a way to help people in these days, in their hardest days, so helping them organize funerals online or paying tribute to their dead with memorials on websites, etc.
All right, Flo, thank you very much for that. That was the French press review right here on France 24. Coming up in the programme, in Focus, we'll meet with José Mujica. The Uruguayan leader is one of the world's poorest presidents. He gives away most of his salary to charity and has vowed to fight against what he calls Western consumerism. But in a largely capitalist world, his economic policies are often criticised. All that is coming up after the break.